She called me pathetic on speakerphone while I watched through our home security camera. I stayed completely silent. When she came home from her girls' trip 10 days later, what she found in our house made her collapse in the driveway. Viewers, before we dive into this story, ask yourself, what would you do if you discovered the person you were building a life with saw you as nothing more than a temporary convenience, someone useful until they didn't need you anymore? This is the true story of Brian Hayes, a night shift warehouse worker who learned the hard way that sometimes the quietest people are the ones planning the loudest exits. And what he did in just 10 days will make you rethink everything you know about betrayal, revenge, and the power of simply walking away. But here's the twist that changes everything. Brian wasn't eavesdropping by accident. He saw every word, every laugh, every cruel joke in real time. And the moment he pressed save on that video, Rachel's entire world began counting down to 0. Let's begin. Act 1. The discovery. The moment everything changed. It was a Tuesday night, 11:17 p.m. Brian Hayes sat in his 2015 Honda Civic in the AutoZone employee parking lot, the engine ticking as it cooled. His lunch break, 30 minutes to eat the turkey sandwich Rachel had made him that morning, scroll through his phone, and brace himself for the second half of his inventory shift. He was 29 years old. He'd been working nights at the warehouse for 3 years, restocking shelves, managing inventory, making $17 an hour. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. And steady meant he could split rent on the house in suburban Minneapolis with Rachel, his girlfriend of 4 years. They weren't married. Rachel always said she wanted to wait until they were more financially stable. Brian had agreed. He trusted her timeline, trusted her completely. The shared tablet, the one they used for grocery lists and shared calendars, sat on his passenger seat. He picked it up absently, intending to add milk to the shopping list. That's when the notification popped up. Ring camera, motion detected, living room. Brian frowned. Rachel should be at book club. She left at 7, said she'd be back by midnight. He tapped the notification, more curious than concerned. The live feed opened. Rachel was pacing their living room, wine glass in hand, phone held out in front of her, speaker mode. Her face was flushed, animated, alive in a way Brian hadn't seen directed at him in months. 2 faces filled her screen, her friends Jenna and Kira, both laughing. Brian turned up the volume. Rachel's voice cut through the parking lot silence. "I'm so done playing house with him. I mean, he restocks shelves for $17 an hour and genuinely thinks he's providing for us." The friends laughed. One of them said something Brian couldn't hear. Rachel continued, her tone sharp with contempt. "Meanwhile, Darren just got promoted to regional director. He's pulling 6 figures now, and he's been asking me to come stay with him once his divorce finalizes." Brian's sandwich sat forgotten in his lap. Jenna's voice, "So why are you still there? Why not just leave?" Rachel took a long sip of wine, then smiled at the screen. "Because I need this place until Darren's situation settles. Brian pays half the rent. He's useful in that way. Just, God, he's so pathetic. Like last week he asked if I wanted to cuddle and watch a movie. I literally wanted to die." The 3 women erupted in laughter. Kira, "You're terrible." Rachel, "I know, but I can't keep faking it. The second Darren's free, I'm gone. Brian will probably cry, but he'll be fine. He always is." The call continued for another 14 minutes. Rachel talked about Darren's lake house, his BMW, the vacation to Cancun he'd promised her. She mimicked Brian's voice when he'd asked about her day. She laughed about the Christmas gift he'd saved up for, a necklace she'd never worn. Brian watched 18 minutes and 23 seconds. He didn't move, didn't blink. His breathing stayed steady, controlled, mechanical.
By the time his shift ended at 6 a.m., Brian had made a decision. Rachel wanted him gone, she'd get exactly what she asked for, but not the way she expected.
Now, before we continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you realized too late that someone was using you? Drop a comment below and let me know, because what Brian does next isn't just revenge, it's a masterclass in silent power. And if you're enjoying this story so far, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we post real stories like this every single week. Stories that make you think, that make you feel, and that remind you why actions always have consequences. Now, let's see what Brian did with those 10 days. Day 1, Wednesday morning. Brian came home as the sun crept over the neighborhood. Rachel was still asleep, her phone charging on the nightstand, her breathing deep and unbothered. He showered quietly, the hot water beating against his neck, washing away the grime of the warehouse, but not the clarity that had settled into his bones. He climbed into bed beside her. She stirred slightly, mumbled something, then rolled away. Brian stared at the ceiling. The bedroom still smelled like her perfume. The walls were painted the soft gray she'd chosen. The curtains, the dresser, the framed print of a Parisian street, all hers. He'd paid for half of it, of course, half the rent, half the utilities, half the groceries. But the life they were building, that had always been hers. He'd just been funding it. At breakfast, Rachel was bright and cheerful, scrolling through her phone between bites of yogurt. "So," she said casually, not looking up, "my sister invited me on a girls' trip. Miami. 10 days. We'd leave this Saturday." Brian poured himself coffee. Steady hands, calm voice. "That sounds great. You should go." Rachel looked up, surprised. "Really? You're okay with it?" "Yeah. You've been stressed with work. You deserve a break." Her expression softened, and for a moment, Brian saw the girl he'd fallen for 4 years ago. Then she smiled, and he remembered the woman laughing on that video call. "You're the best," she said, already texting her sister. Brian sipped his coffee and said nothing. That afternoon, while Rachel was at work at the community college, her job as an administrative assistant, pulling $42,000 a year, Brian made his first call. The landlord answered on the third ring. "Hey Jim, it's Brian Hayes. I need to give you my 30-day notice." Silence. Then, "You're moving out?" "Yeah, personal reasons. I'll be out before the end of the month." Jim sighed. "I hate losing good tenants. You've been month to month for a year now, so it's legal. But what about Rachel?" Brian's jaw tightened. "Rachel's name isn't on the lease. She's listed as an occupant. This is my rental." Right. Okay, well, good luck with whatever you've got going on." Brian thanked him and hung up. One call, one decision, the foundation removed. Day 2, Thursday. Brian opened a new checking account at a credit union across town. He'd been direct depositing his paychecks into what Rachel called their joint account, but it was actually her account with him added as an authorized user. She managed the finances, paid the bills, or so she said. He called AutoZone HR from his car during lunch. "I need to reroute my direct deposit. New account, effective immediately." The HR representative, a tired-sounding woman named Pam, confirmed the change. "It'll hit your new account starting next paycheck." Perfect. Brian hung up and stared at the warehouse across the parking lot. The fluorescent lights buzzed inside, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. He'd spent 3 years in there. 3 years of night shifts, sore feet, aching shoulders. And for what? To fund a life Rachel was already planning to leave? That night, Rachel talked excitedly about Miami. The hotel had a rooftop pool. There was a Cuban restaurant her sister wanted to try. She showed Brian photos on her phone, her face glowing in the blue light. Brian listened, nodded, asked questions, even helped her decide between the red bikini and the blue one. "You're being so sweet about this," she said, kissing his cheek. "I just want you to have a good time." She had no idea he'd already started erasing himself from her world. Day 3, Friday.
Brian rented a climate-controlled storage unit at a facility near the highway, $89 a month. He paid 3 months up front in cash. The attendant, a guy in his 50s with a gray beard, barely looked up. "You need help moving stuff?" "No, I've got it." After Rachel left for work, Brian began the transfer. He worked methodically, moving in stages, starting with things she'd never notice. His father's toolbox. The old man had died 2 years ago, left Brian almost nothing except those tools. Wrenches, hammers, screwdrivers worn smooth by decades of use. Brian carried the box to his car, set it gently in the trunk. His books. Sci-fi paperbacks, a few philosophy texts from a community college he'd taken years ago. Rachel never read them, probably didn't even know they were there. His clothes, not everything, just enough that the closet still looked full. He left behind the shirts Rachel had bought him, the ones she said made him look put together. He took the faded band tees, the jeans with holes in the knees, the jacket his mom had given him for his 16th birthday. The PlayStation, his one indulgence. He'd saved for months to buy it. Rachel complained it took up space, that he played too much. He wrapped it in a towel and placed it carefully in a box. By the time Rachel came home, the apartment looked exactly the same, but Brian's entire existence had shifted 3 miles away, walked behind a rolling metal door. Day 4, Saturday, the airport. Brian drove Rachel to the airport in his Honda. Her pink suitcase sat in the trunk, stuffed with new clothes she'd bought on a credit card Brian didn't know about. She wore oversized sunglasses and scrolled through her phone, humming to herself. At the departures curb, Brian lifted her suitcase onto the sidewalk. Rachel checked her reflection in her phone screen, adjusted her hair. "Don't burn the place down while I'm gone," she said, laughing. Brian smiled. "I'll try not to." She leaned in, kissed his cheek. Her lips were sticky with gloss. "Love you." "Love you too." He watched her walk through the automatic doors, her heels clicking against the tile, her suitcase rolling behind her. She didn't look back. Brian stood there for a long moment, hands in his pockets, breathing in the cold morning air. Then he got in his car and drove to a 24-hour diner off the highway. He ordered coffee, black, pulled a notebook from his backpack, started writing. Storage unit rented. Utilities cancellation scheduled. Furniture removed. Keys returned. New place secured. He circled the last 2 items. 4 days left. Viewers, I need to pause here for a second, because what Brian is doing isn't impulsive, it's not emotional, it's surgical. And the scary part? Rachel has absolutely no idea. She's sitting on a beach in Miami right now, sipping cocktails and texting Darren, while her entire life is being quietly dismantled piece by piece. If you're watching this and thinking about someone who took you for granted, someone who underestimated you, drop a comment. Tell me what you would have done. And if you haven't already, smash that like button and subscribe, because this story is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. The best part is still coming. Let's continue. Days 5 through 6, Sunday and Monday, the dismantling. Brian didn't waste time. While Rachel posted Instagram stories of sunrise yoga and poolside mimosas, he was on the phone with utility companies. "I need to cancel electric service." "And when would you like the disconnect date?" "The 31st, end of the month." Same script, gas company, internet provider, water department. Every single one was in his name. Rachel had never handled a single bill. She'd assumed he'd always be there to take care of it. By Monday afternoon, every utility had a termination date stamped in their system. Next came the furniture. Brian hired 2 guys from TaskRabbit, college students looking for quick cash. $200 for 3 hours of work. He met them at the house Tuesday morning after Rachel's sister confirmed she'd be out running errands. "Everything you see here," Brian said, gesturing to the living room, "needs to go into this U-Haul." The couch Rachel's mom had given them, the dining table she'd picked out at a second-hand store, her desk stacked with nursing school textbooks she swore she'd go back to finish, the bookshelf she'd painted teal, the coffee table with the wine ring stains. The guys worked fast, wrapping furniture and blankets, loading it onto the truck. Within 2 hours, the house was a shell.
Brian drove the U-Haul to Rachel's sister's apartment complex. He parked in the visitor lot, unloaded everything piece by piece, and stacked it neatly against the building's brick wall. Then he taped a note to the couch. "Rachel's things. She'll need them. Brian." He took a photo with his phone, proof, just in case. Then he drove the U-Haul back to the rental place, returned the keys, and got back in his Honda. The house was empty now, completely, just bare walls and echoes. Days 7 and 8, Wednesday and Thursday, the new beginning. Brian found a room for rent on Craigslist, $500 a month, furnished, in a house with 2 graduate students, one studying environmental science, the other working on a master's in education. They were quiet, respectful, and didn't ask too many questions. "I just need a place to land for a while," Brian said during the walkthrough. "Works for us," the environmental science guy said. "We're barely here anyway." Brian moved his boxes in that night. His clothes hung in a narrow closet. His father's toolbox sat on a shelf. The PlayStation hooked up to a small TV the landlord had left behind. It wasn't much, but it was his. Thursday night, Brian returned to the old house one last time. He walked through each room, checking for anything he'd missed. The walls were bare, the carpets clean, the kitchen counters wiped down. He vacuumed, took out the trash, left the place spotless. Then he placed one item on the kitchen counter, a printed screenshot of the Ring camera video, the timestamp clear, Rachel's face mid-laugh, the caption beneath readable even in the photo. "He's so pathetic." No note, no explanation, just the evidence. Brian pulled the keys from his pocket, placed them in the landlord's Dropbox outside the office, and included a short typed letter. "Jim, thanks for being a great landlord. Lease ends the 31st as we discussed. Place is clean and ready for the next tenant. Brian Hayes." He stood on the porch for a moment, looking back through the window into the empty living room. 4 years of his life had happened here. 4 years of believing he was building something. Now it was just an address. Brian walked to his car, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. Day 9, Friday, the calm. Brian worked his shift at AutoZone like nothing had happened, scanned boxes, restacked inventory, clocked out at 6 a.m. His new roommates were making coffee when he got home. "Hey man, we're doing trivia night at a bar tomorrow. You in?" Brian paused, thought about it. "Yeah, I'm in." "Cool. It's low-key, just for fun." Brian went to his room, lay down on the bed, and for the first time in 10 days, slept without setting an alarm. Day 10, Saturday. Rachel comes home. Rachel's plane landed at MSP Airport at 2:30 p.m. She was tan, rested, glowing. Miami had been perfect. Darren had coincidentally been in town for business and met her at a beachside bar. They'd kissed, made plans. He'd said his divorce would be final in 6 weeks. 6 weeks until her new life started. She ordered an Uber, scrolling through photos on her phone. Darren's hand on her waist, sunset over the ocean, a cocktail with a tiny umbrella. The Uber pulled up to the house at 3:45. Rachel tipped the driver, grabbed her suitcase, and walked toward the front door. Something felt off. The porch light was off, even though it was on a timer. The mailbox was overflowing. She frowned, pulled out her keys. The key slid into the lock. The door swung open. It was unlocked. "Brian?"
No answer. Rachel stepped inside, dragging her suitcase behind her. The living room was empty, not just tidy, empty. No couch, no coffee table, no TV. The walls were bare, the picture hooks still visible against the paint. Rachel's breath caught. Brian? She walked faster, heels clicking on hardwood. The kitchen, empty. Cabinets open, shelves bare. No dishes, no food. The refrigerator door hung ajar, the inside dark and unplugged. Her heart pounded. She ran upstairs. The bedroom, empty. The bed, gone. Her dresser, gone. She yanked open the closet. Empty rods, no hangers, no shoes, nothing. No, 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 no. Rachel's hands shook as she pulled out her phone, dialed Brian's number. The number you have reached is no longer in service. She tried again, same message. Texted, "Where are you? What happened?" Message failed to send. Panic, raw, clawing panic. She called her sister. It rang 4 times before Amy answered. "Rach? My house is empty. Everything's gone. Where's Brian? What the hell is happening?" Silence. Then, carefully, "Rachel, your stuff is here." "What?" "Your furniture. It's been in our parking lot since Tuesday. There was a note from Brian." Rachel's legs buckled. She sank onto the floor, the phone pressed to her ear. "What did it say?" "Just Rachel's things. She'll need them. I tried calling you, but—" Rachel ended the call. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps. She forced herself to stand, stumbled back downstairs. That's when she saw it. A single sheet of paper on the kitchen counter, right where Brian used to leave grocery lists. She picked it up with trembling hands. A printed screenshot, the Ring camera feed, her face, mid-laugh, wine glass raised. The timestamp, Tuesday, 11:47 p.m. The caption visible on her phone screen in the image. "He's so pathetic." Beneath the photo, handwritten in blue pen. "Rachel, you called me pathetic. You said I was useful until you didn't need me anymore. You laughed about it with your friends. You made plans to leave the second someone better came along. You were right about one thing. I was useful. I paid half the rent. I paid the utilities. I kept this place running while you waited for your upgrade. But you were wrong about something too. You thought I'd cry. You thought I'd beg. You thought I'd be fine. I am fine, just not here. The lease is canceled. Utilities end today. Your furniture is at your sister's. Your key doesn't work because I returned it to the landlord. You wanted me gone? Congratulations, you got your wish. You're free now. Brian.
Rachel's knees gave out. She slid down the kitchen cabinet, the paper crumpling in her fist. A sound tore from her throat, half sob, half scream, echoing off the empty walls. She tried to call Darren, straight to voicemail. Tried again, voicemail. Texted, "I need you, call me." No response. She sat there for an hour, maybe 2. The light outside dimmed. The house grew cold. The heat had been shut off. Finally, her sister called back. "Rachel, you need to come here, now." I don't... Get an Uber, come now." Rachel stood on shaking legs, grabbed her suitcase, and walked out the front door. She didn't lock it. There was nothing left to protect. Rachel sat on her sister's couch, scrolling numbly through her phone. Darren had blocked her on everything. His wife had found out about the affair. The divorce was off. He'd called Rachel a distraction in his last message before cutting contact. Her sister walked past, carrying laundry. "You can't stay here forever, Rach. I have a 1-bedroom." "I know. Have you found a place yet?" Rachel shook her head.
Without Brian's half of the rent, she couldn't afford much. Most of her paycheck went to credit card debt, the clothes, the trips, the lifestyle she'd been faking. She tried logging into Netflix, Brian's account, canceled. Spotify, his subscription, expired. Car insurance, his policy with her added as a driver, lapsed. Even the Ring camera had been disconnected, no more video history. Rachel pulled up her banking app. The joint account, her account really, showed $214. Brian hadn't contributed since the day she left for Miami. She opened Instagram, scrolled to Brian's profile, deleted. She tried searching his name on Facebook. Nothing. He hadn't just left, he'd erased himself completely. And for the first time, Rachel understood what Brian had meant in that note. She wasn't free. She was abandoned. Across the city, Brian clocked out of his shift at AutoZone. One of his new roommates texted, "Trivia night tonight. You coming?" Brian smiled. "Yeah, I'll be there." He walked to his car, the morning air crisp and clean. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. He turned on the radio, some indie song he didn't recognize, but it sounded good. For the first time in 4 years, Brian wasn't thinking about Rachel, wasn't wondering if she was happy, wasn't sacrificing for someone who saw him as temporary. He was just free, and that was enough. Viewers, this story asks a question we all need to answer. How much of yourself are you willing to give to someone who sees you as useful instead of irreplaceable? Brian didn't yell, didn't fight, didn't destroy. He just quietly removed himself from a situation where he was undervalued. And sometimes that's the most powerful move you can make. If this story hit you in any way, if you've been the Brian, or maybe even the Rachel, drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. And if you made it this far, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we bring you stories like this every week. Real people, real consequences, real lessons. Thanks for watching, and remember, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strategy.